Hi everyone, Oh My Giona here. Welcome back for another episode of my K-drama commentary. I am watching the Korean drama Run On, and this is episode 10. Last episode, I watched the video of the episode and was like pausing and talking about the scenes. This time, I did like a screenshot of the scenes that I wanted to talk about. And so I'm just gonna be looking at the pictures and I'm gonna put them here so that you know what I'm talking about. There are some like alternate translations that I wanted to talk about in this episode. Disclaimer, I'm not Korean. I've learned the language like 12 years ago. Not properly though. I did it by myself by reading books and just watching dramas. So I'm not like totally accurate. Please take everything with a grain of salt. Let's go. Okay, so it started with where we left off last episode with Dana and Yonghwa talking to each other. And this one here, when Yonghwa said, "Are you sure it isn't because you hate to lose?" And Dana just had this face like, I don't know what to say to that kind of thing. I really appreciate Yonghwa talking like that to her though, because nobody else would. And she doesn't get it because nobody else tells her these kinds of things. Like they just go along with her because she's like the higher person. She has the power. She has a higher status than them. But Yonghwa kind of didn't care for that. So that's pretty cool. And it's funny because they've been like at it, like Yonghwa talks and then Dana says something back and then he says something back. But then when Yonghwa said this, Dana was like, she was speechless for a little bit there. And then later on, both of them regret it. It was a battle of pride. Okay, this part when Yonghwa said, "Miss So, you're the worst." That was like the subtitles in the video. But what he said was 되게 별로다. So the translation was "you're the worst," but it's actually kind of like the opposite of it because 별로 is more like meh, like so he was saying, I was expecting more from you, but you were actually meh. Not the worst, like she's not the worst. This scene of Miju, she was gonna do her usual routine, like just putting in her fruits and her veggies and just using her blender and then drinking it. That's her meal. But then she thinks back to Sungyum saying like, you know, you have to eat. Like that's not food. And it's really nice to see her here because Sungyum actually had a positive influence on her. And it's nice to see her eat. Like, really, food is important, everyone. You gotta eat. Taewoong is back. I love Taewoong. This was from a previous episode when he met Hyunghwa outside Dana's company. And then he was asking like, well, how old are you? And Hyunghwa said, "Kemasal." So it got translated as old enough, but kemasal is crab meat. And seeing that Taewoong, I don't think Taewoong was born in Korea, or at least he lived most of his life abroad. He didn't know what it meant. It was a play because when you say what your age is, like say you're 20 years old, you say sumusal. So that's 20 is sumul, and then sal would be like years. So you're 20 years old, 20살. And that was like a play on words. He said "kemasal," which is crab meat. And it's just so funny. He keeps on asking, like, how old is crab meat? But here they say, how old is old enough? Which is not as funny. Okay, I'm adding this one just because I really want this phone now. The first time I saw it, I think is It's Okay Not to Be Okay. Go Moon-young had this phone, like the flip one. It's so cool. I want it. PPL is working. Also, talking about PPL, is there any PPL that you saw, like a product placement you saw in a K-drama that made you actually want to buy something? Like buy it? I really want to get like the Dyson vacuum cleaner, if only it wasn't so expensive. Okay, this one. Hyunghwa told Seongyum, because he was trying to borrow money from him because he needed money for rent and he didn't have it. And he said, for the translation, "Give me that chance and I'll make sure you live like a king." What he said in Korean was 손에 물 한 방울도 안 묻히게 해드릴게요. So it's literally, literally means, I will not let your hands touch even a drop of water. So like the translation was right. I just wanted to give that alternate translation, like the literal translation to it, because like when you clean, usually you'd wash your hands, or like you would use like a wash rug to clean something, and so you would always have water on your hands. And that's why he's saying, I won't let you have a drop of water touch your hand. Technically making him live like a king. Oh, this scene is so cute with May coming home and she's asking, are you home? Like, anybody home? And in Korean, she says, 집에 있어? Like, literally, are you home? And then Miju says, 있어. Like, I'm here. But you're like, she's totally not there. It's just so cute how May was like, 없는데? Like, but you're not here, because she's not present. Like, her body was there, but her mind was somewhere else. And it's just so cute how May saw through that. Like, you know what? You're not here. What's going on? I love May. Also, I think it was the first episode or the second episode, she actually calls Miju yobo, like honey or darling. Usually couples, like married couples, use that. You call like your husband or your wife yobo, and that's what she calls Miju, and that's just so cute. Okay, here's May and Miju making some side dishes, and Miju says she really wants to work on a horror movie right now, and she asks even if it was written by Aaron Sorkin. And so this did not get translated, but there's like a small caption here. And it says that Aaron Sorkin is a famous writer, an American writer who's famous for having lots of script, like dialogue. And so she was asking, even if Aaron Sorkin wrote it, would you still accept it? Because she doesn't like doing transcriptions and all of that. So it was just funny. But yeah, they don't translate, like the small captions on the bottom. Okay, this is another good exchange between them. So Miju was going crazy. She's like, oh, but like I was expecting Seongyum to do this, but I'm scared to confess and I didn't want him to go and like leave me behind. And May just listens to her ramble. May just listens to her ramble on, and she was making her dish, and she says, it's too bland. It's right, like, it can mean that what she was making was too bland, like it's not salty enough or it tastes flat. But the word for bland is 싱겁다, and she says 싱겁네. But it could also mean that she finds what Miju was saying like just nonsense. Like it doesn't make sense what she's saying. I just thought that was cute. And then Miju keeps on going on and she still listens, and then she gives her some to taste and she says 간 좀 봐봐, which is have a taste, but it could also mean like feel it out. So that's a double meaning as well. She's trying to give her the food to try and eat, but she's also saying, you know what, just go for it and see what Sungyum would say. I like that. She's so witty. I love May. But then May just reacts to her like with these short sentences, and so Miju goes like, but I'm serious, and then she's holding like the leek and she's like, but I'm serious, acting all cute. Oh, the next scene with Miju imagining all the scenarios that could happen when she finally tells Sungyum, you know what, I like you, and like confesses. And I love how whenever Miju goes into her imagination mode, they're all movies or something that's movie-like, and that's so in character because she always watches movies, and probably like her mind, it's always full of movies. And this one in particular, oh, I had a good laugh. Like the first one with her giving Sungyum like soju and saying, if you drink this, it means that we're gonna start dating. And this scene is it's from a movie called I think A Moment to Remember. Let me check my notes. It's A Moment to Remember with Son Ye-jin and Jung Woo-sung. I actually watched this show again because of Dong-hae. Dong-hae wasn't in the movie, but like in another variety show, he mentioned this show. But yeah, in the movie, it was actually Son Ye-jin. So like the roles are flipped. Son Ye-jin had the soju. Oh, this is kind of spoilers. But spoilers! She actually drinks it, and so they started dating. But here Sungyum's like, nope. And he goes like this. That's so funny. And if you watch the actual movie, Sungyum's face is exactly how Son Ye-jin looked like. Oh, Im Ji-won is so good. Like, the whole expression on his face, that's Son Ye-jin. Like, Youngwoo here saying, what a weird conversation. That's exactly what I feel whenever I listen to all of them. Like, even when Youngwoo talks to Dana, like, it always sounds weird. So I always watch them like multiple times just to actually understand what they're talking about. Like, it's so cool. Sometimes they talk about two different things and then it just blends together, and then you're kind of like, oh yeah, I get it. But usually they're like a very weird conversation. This writer is so smart. Because it's weird, but it's still funny. And then here, Sungyum says, did I make her do it again? Because he's been thinking about how other people always makes the first move. Like last episode, Woo-shik called him first, and then he asked himself, oh, like, did I make him do it first? And here he asked himself again and realizes, you know what, Miju had to take the first step again. Then there's this scene with Sungyum's dad and Dana's dad in like a I think it's called the manhwabang. So like a bookstore, but just for comic books. And this one that he's reading, I kind of looked at the title. In English, it's called Ruler of the Land. I read the synopsis for it. It sounds very makjang. It's like a historical, it's set in like an ancient kingdom. And it seems quite over the top. And it's still ongoing and seems to be very popular. Like what Donna's dad said, like, let's start you with something that's famous. I couldn't see what Donna's dad was reading though. Like the letters were too tiny. At first I thought he was gonna make him read One Piece. But I guess not. One Piece is life. Oh, I like this scene. When Dana tells him, don't tell me you think other athletes deserve to be treated just like you. Because it seems like Songyum wants help for Usyk. But what Dana is saying, like, don't you realize, like, the reason why we're doing all of this for you is because you're Ki Songyum. Like, your dad is a politician, your mom is an actor, your sister is like a pro golfer. That's the reason why we're doing this for you. Do you expect us to do the same thing for Usyk? Like, that's pretty naive for him to think that way, because it's so obvious. People are treating you very nicely because you're someone important. And Usyk, who had nothing, sadly gets treated like the way like the coach or his teammates treated him. Like, it's just a sad reality. And I'm surprised that Songyum doesn't get that. Or maybe he's just too hopeful that the world would be fair somehow. Songyum watching Jerry Maguire in the library. I haven't seen this show, so I can't really say anything. I looked it up. It's from 1996, and it's about a sports agent who gets fired for, I guess, speaking his mind, which is very much like Songyum. Songyum does, he didn't get fired, but he left on his own. But it's a pretty similar situation they both have. I think I'm gonna watch this. I watched the teaser for it, and it seems like a very good show. And Miju recommends it, so it must be good. And they meet! Yay! And I love how Songyum was the first one. He says, yesterday I watched Jerry Maguire, and he opened a conversation. Like, it was quite awkward. Like, they sat together, but nobody was saying anything. And Songyum was the one to break the ice. And I appreciate that, because he's been realizing that other people always seem to take the first step towards him and that he's not trying enough. But this is his resolve. Like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. And he did. And that's just beautiful. Took him like 10 episodes, but gonna cut him some slack. And then he says, like, when you asked me to like you, I felt like I was precious, like I was important at that moment. And that just melted my heart. Oh, and in this one, Miju just started using banmal, like the casual talk. Usually you use it for when you're talking to your friends or for someone who's younger than you. Both of them had been talking to each other in 존댓말, which is the formal speech. And then she just switches into banmal, and he's like, are we just gonna talk to each other casually now? But then he didn't want it. And Miju says, I can't imagine how we'll be if we started doing that, which is something that I find very interesting in the Korean language. So 존댓말 is the formal speech. For example, it would be like 안녕하십니까 or 안녕하세요. They just mean hello, but that's the formal speech, what you use for someone who's older or in a higher position than you. And then banmal is the casual speech you use with your friends or someone who's younger. It's hard to notice this when you just read the subtitles, because I mean, we don't really have an actual formal speech in English. It just sounds quite casual. But there's a change when they switch from 존댓말, like when they talk in 존댓말, like the formal speech, it feels like there's a wall that you can't cross, like there's a line that you can't cross. And then when, like, say two people, then they start dating and then they start using like the casual speech, they suddenly feel close. It's so cool. And then when you, okay, this might be a little bit of a spoiler. In Six Flying Dragons, Buni and Bangwon, they are friends, so they talk to each other in banmal. And then, like, in the middle of the drama, she switched to the formal speech, and you just feel that wall. Like, it's just there. Just because of, like, the change in speech. Like, I always find that interesting. Even when I talk to people, because I do like a language exchange online, and when I talk to people, and then so I would use like formal speech, and then later on when I get closer to the person, then we start talking in casual speech, and you just suddenly feel so close to that person. It's pretty cool. So this one, Songyum just kept on talking like, oh, why is she walking me home? Like, is this place safe? What if she had to take the taxi and then that's not safe? Like, he started to get very chatty, but then he was kind of like just talking to himself. And then Younghwa said, I'm so lost. So here's the thing. In Korean, he was just talking without like a subject, like a pronoun. So he's really not saying she, like, we know that he's talking about Miju, but Younghwa here did not know that. So he's like not sure, like, what's he talking about? That's a little bit confusing. In Korean, you don't necessarily have to use a subject to say something. Like, say, 울었어. I mean, I cried. But you can translate it as I cried or you cried, depending on what actually happened. But 울었어 is just the verb, like cry. So you don't really know who did the crying because there was no subject. It was just 울었어. But if you want it to be specific, you could say 내가 울었어. I cried. 너가 울었어. You cried. But it can still be standalone, and it can be very confusing like that. That's why Younghwa was lost. This one, Dana finally got the picture, like the frame for Unbi that she wanted so long. Like, she waited so long for this moment to get her picture up on her shelf. And now that she finally got it, she's like, wait, why am I not that excited? She's not as excited as she expected herself to be. You know, sometimes we imagine something and then we get there and it's really not as satisfying. And it's kind of like a letdown. But here I think she's just preoccupied thinking about Younghwa. When Dana went to Miju's house and then she met the delivery guy, she's like, did you come here by appointment? And he just stares at her like, what's this lady talking about? So now we find out why Dana is so concerned about Younghwa, because she actually likes him. And she says, when I start to like something, I like it forever, just like soccer. So we know that she used to play soccer, but then she had to stop. And she has this longing for it. Like, she wants to play, but she can't do it anymore. And I feel like everyone has something like that. Something you always long for, but you've kind of given up on it. You've accepted that you you're never gonna get it, but you kind of still have it like in a corner of your heart. Like for me, I used to do I was doing communication arts as a major in university, but then I couldn't do it anymore. I wanted to work in the film industry, and it's something that I always feel I would be very happy to do, but then things change and it just didn't work out, and I've accepted the fact that I'm not going there. But sometimes, like here where I live, they do a lot of filmings in like the downtown area, and whenever I drive past and I see like all these cameras and lights, and I feel like this small pang in my heart, like I should have been there. But then, like, you know, like I've accepted I'm not gonna do that. But you sometimes think about it and it kind of hurts. So I get why she's like this towards soccer. This is funny how the sofa, like the couch, is just right behind them when Dana fell asleep, but then she carried her all the way to her bedroom. And I have a theory that the reason why she did this was because Sungyum used to sleep on the couch, and she thinks that's Sungyum's bed, and she'd rather carry Dana all the way to her room so she can sleep there and not on Sungyum's bed. And I think when she was missing Sungyum, she was watching her movie on the couch. Like, she doesn't have to. She has her table here. She could watch her movie there. But she was lying down on her bed, like the couch, on his bed, the couch. This coach, I hate this guy so much. And there's like a translation part here that I wanted to talk about. The translation here says, "You should have kept quiet then." But what he said was, 한 번만 참지 그랬냐. So they missed the 한 번만 part, which is, okay, so 한 번만 참지 그랬냐 would literally be translated to, you should have endured it, or you should have put up with it one more time. So he's saying when they beat you up that one time, you should have just put up with it. Like, you shouldn't have made a fuss. And the key word here is the 한 번만, which is like that one more time. Ushik says 한 번만, like he asked that, but on the translation it said should have. But with like the one more time part, it would make more sense when he says, if I kept quiet, I wouldn't be here. Because if that one time that he's talking about, if they actually beat him up to death, then there won't be a next time. And it's just, it breaks my heart. Like, this dude is a coach who's supposed to like raise these guys to be like really good athletes and like support their dreams. And he says something like this to his athlete. Like, what kind of person are you? Like, I feel so bad for Ushik, and Ushik doesn't have anybody to back him up. And it breaks my heart to see people like walking all over him. Like, whatever happened to like those two guys who beat him up? Like, seriously, those guys should have been removed from the team. And it's sad because these kinds of things probably happen in real life. And some people just put up with it. I mean, Ushik did put up with it before. Like, they've been bullying him, like beating him up for years and years, even when he was in school, because they were in the same school. So, like, kind of sad that 한 번만 part didn't make it in the translations, because I think that hits harder saying that one more time. Like, you should have put up with it one more time. But no, thank goodness he didn't. And then this confrontation between Sungyum and Woo-shik. Woo-shik says, I don't want to be swayed. Oh, I feel for this so much because I feel like Sungyum has been pushing him to go back. And I think Woo-shik doesn't want to, or at least thinks that he can't go back anymore. I feel like Sungyum was pushing him because he can't do that for himself. And I don't want him to sway Woo-shik. This poor guy has been through so much. He doesn't want to go back to running. And then Sungyum just keeps going like, you know what, you can go back. I can help you. And I'm like, dude, don't push him. And then Sungyum goes after him. But then he says, 오지 마세요. Like, don't come. And he actually listens. Like, Sungyum actually stays where he is. Even when Woo-shik fell down, like, he didn't go to him. He stopped on his tracks. And then he asks, what if my record isn't as good as before? Like, that's so hard. Because, like, I do feel like he does want to go back. But there's so many things, like logical things, that stops him from doing so. And I can't blame him for being like this. Like, if it was me, I would be the same. It's hard to imagine yourself running again after an injury. And with no one to support you there. Like, even Sungyum won't be there anymore because he retired. And this last part, very beautiful from Sungyum. He says, don't say that here. Like, try it first. And then you can give up if it doesn't work. It's like saying, like, take it one step at a time. Like, just don't give up right away. Like, take the next step, and then we'll think about what will happen next when we get there. And so he says, should we start by getting up, like getting you back to your feet? And that's just beautiful because he means it. Like, you know what? Here, let me help you get up. Like, during that situation. But also he means that I'm going to help you get up and then get back to running. So yeah, that's episode 10 of Run On. Not sure if I was making sense with all that I'm saying. I'll try to add some captions for the parts I was talking about regarding the Korean and like the alternate translations. But yeah, I'm so happy that Sungyum and Miju are finally dating after 10 episodes. Like, seriously, like episode 3, 4, we all think that they're dating except them. But it's nice that they took it slow. But now that they are together, we get to look at the other parts of the story, not just their romance. And I think we will be able to focus a little bit more on our second leads. I feel that with these people, all they needed are friends. Like, for real. Like, Sungyum doesn't really have a friend that he can go to and just talk about his feelings. For example, Miju has May, and May would tell her, like, girl, like, you need to stop, or you need to do this. Because when you're in when you're overthinking, you don't think logically, and you miss so many things. And May helps Miju get through that. But Sungyum doesn't have anyone like that. Same for Dana. Dana doesn't have friends. She even had to go to Miju to ask her in regards to Younghwa, because she doesn't have anyone. I feel like a lot of these things can be resolved if they only had one friend, like May for Miju. So that's it for me today. Let me know what you think of the episode on the comment section. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. I'm going to be uploading more things in the future. And please give me like feedback because I'm new to this. I'm not sure if this kind of format works. Right now I'm just doing the screenshots. But let me know if you prefer having the video on there as well, or if the screenshots are fine. And then maybe I will try something else, whichever works. Yeah, I will see you in the next episode. I'm so excited for Wednesday. Bye.